When Pastor Charlie asked me to preach, my first reaction was, yeah, sure, no problem. And then my second thought was, oh my, what are the readings for this Sunday? The Old Testament, you see, and the New Testament readings can be a challenge. So I did what any no tech-savvy person would do. I asked Charlie. So, to tell you the truth, I'm not that bad at technology. I would say I'm somewhere between bad and fair. I can Google search, so that's what I did. Pastor Charlie also followed through with the scripture readings. I read the Old Testament reading in Joshua and says, no, that doesn't speak to me. I read the gospel reading in Luke and said, maybe. And when I read Psalms 32, my first thought was, I've never preached from Psalms. So I began to research, and it came together for me, and I hope it comes together for you also. In the Google search I did on Psalms, it told me that the Psalms were like poems or songs, and more specifically, Psalms 32 was a song of forgiveness. My question became, was it forgiveness for the writer, or forgiveness from God, or both? So my Google search ended and my manual search began. I pulled out my Bible. Found out Psalms 32 was written by King David. For those of you that don't know who he is, here's a little backstory or history about his life. David was the youngest son of Jesse. He was handpicked by God to be the anointed one and to rule over Israel. David was young. He was humble and a lowly sheep herder. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 11 and 12, it reads, Samuel said to Jesse, are all your sons here? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, but he is keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. He sent and brought him in. Now, David was ruddy-complected, and he had beautiful eyes, and he was handsome. The Lord says, rise and anoint him, for this is the one. This is similar to the New Testament reading on the baptism of Jesus. The skies opened, descended a dove. The Lord said, this is my son, in whom I am well pleased. Now, let's go back to David's story and fast forward through his growing up years to being in Saul's house and playing a lyre for his dinner and the love story that ensued. Yes, I said the love story that ensued. David was in love with Jonathan, and Jonathan was in love with David. Jonathan was a son of Saul, and believe it or not, Saul knew it. In 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 3 reads, David, in speaking with Jonathan, said, your father knows well that you like me, and he thinks, do not let Jonathan know this, or he will be grieved. Denial runs deep no matter what year of the universe that one lives in. We can only live in denial until it comes to a boiling point, as it did for Jonathan in 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 30. Saul confronted Jonathan, and he said to him, you, son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame? How many times have our parents stepped in thinking they could change how we feel about someone or who we love? How many times have we been told that we bring shame to the family? And how many of us run? No matter our age, we run. Saul tried to shame Jonathan, and it didn't work. It never does, because true love always wins. In verse 16 and 17 it reads, thus Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord seek out the enemies of David. Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own life. I did not make this up. Look for yourself. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 17. Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own life. Who do you love? Who do you love with your own life? Is your love as fierce as David and Jonathan's? Their love story continues in verse 41 and 42. David bowed 3 times, and they kissed each other and wept with each other. David wept the more. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, since both of us have sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord shall be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever.'" They departed to live their lives, but their love is not forgotten. In 2 Samuel chapter 1, verses 25 and 26, upon hearing of Jonathan's death, David responded, "How mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan lies slain upon your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Greatly beloved were you to me. Your love to me was wonderful, even surpassing the love of a woman." Wow. What a love story. But what does this love story have to do with songs of forgiveness? What I'm told and what I've read is that any good songwriter, their songs are the expressions of their life situations. So maybe Psalms 32 is the result of David's life situations. So my research continued, and moving on with David's story and the inspiration for his songwriting, what I found that David not only loved men, but he also loved women, or let's say, lusted after women. In 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 2 and 3, it reads, "It happened late one afternoon when David rose from his couch and was walking about on the roof of the king's house, that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful. David sent someone to inquire about the woman. It was reported, 'This is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite.' So David sent a messenger to get her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. Then she returned to her house. The woman conceived, and Bathsheba sent a message and told David, 'I'm pregnant.' Now what do? King David appears to be in a pickle. He lusted after another man's wife, and now she's pregnant. Mind you, if he spent some time in prayer and meditation, or even asked for advice from his closest friend, he may have made a better decision, but he did not. The decision he made was his downfall. What is he going to do? In verse 14 and 15, it reads, "In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. In the letter he wrote, 'Set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him, so that he may be struck down and die.' So during the battle, Uriah the Hittite was killed. After a period of mourning, David sent for Bathsheba and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. You would think that the choices King David made that I spoke of today would both be displeasing to the Lord, but it was not so. What the Lord found displeasing was found in chapter 12, verse 9. "Why have you displeased the word of the Lord to do what is evil in his sight?" Wait for it. It's really going to surprise you. And the Lord said, "You have struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him." It wasn't his relationship with Jonathan that displeased the Lord. It was the signing of Uriah's death warrant, and to know that Uriah handed the execution orders to Joab, and Uriah did not even know what was happening. Now, how does one carry the guilt and shame that comes with the decisions we make? Some of us use alcohol, drugs, food, work? What do you use? Maybe you can replace those bad decisions with what David chose to do. Believe it or not, through all the ups and downs of David's life, the Lord our God forgave him. David wrote for us in Psalms 32, "Happy are those whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sin is covered." If God can forgive David, God can and will forgive you. The question that you need to ask is, can I forgive myself? You know that with forgiveness, it doesn't mean you have to forget. In another awesome self-help book, it is written, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace, no matter how far down the scale we have gone. If you think you don't deserve God's forgiveness, let me assure you that you do. We will all have challenges in life, as David did. They're what I call the potholes and pitfalls in life. It's the will of God that gives us the strength to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and say, I matter. Whether you believe it or not, tell yourself, I matter. We know the what happened, we lived it. David tells the how to change in verse 5. I acknowledge my sin to you, and I did not hide my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to God, and you forgave the guilt of my sin. Now, why does God choose to forgive? Why you? Why me? Why us? Because we are God's greatest miracle in the world. It is as simple as that. I have a gift for you. Everyone should have got one. It's an envelope. And inside of the envelope is a memorandum. I don't write it. I found it in another awesome self-help book by Og Mandino called The Greatest Miracle in the World. In the memorandum, you will find the 4 laws to happiness and success. I'm going to tell you what they are, but you have to read the memorandum to achieve a renewed you. 1, count your blessings. They are many. 2, proclaim your rarity. There is no other person on this earth like you. 3, go another mile, doing more, giving more, and you will get more. 4, use wisely the power of choice. And 1 more to fulfill the other 4, do all things with love. Love for yourself, love for others, and most of all, love for God. Choose love. Do you want to feel the love of a forgiving God? Do you think you deserve that love? Are you ready to change your life for the better? If you are, then I challenge you to open the envelope, pull out the sheets of paper, and read this memorandum. Let me begin it for you. Take counsel. I hear your cry. It passes through the darkness, filters through the clouds, mingles with starlight, and finds its way to my heart on the path of a sunbeam. Now, you'll have to read the rest yourself. I recommend that you read it each night, maybe before you go to bed. Read it every day for the next 14 days, and on Easter Sunday, the new you will rise as Christ has risen. Wipe away your tears, reach out, and grasp the hand of God and stand tall. You are in the present. You are the present. You're a renewed gift from God. You are the greatest miracle in the world. Arise Rejoice in the love of God. You are forgiven. Amen.